I was sitting on the dusty front steps of my father's white-painted farmhouse, the one he'd built with his bare hands, when my cousin Brian slammed the door shut behind him. The sound echoed like a gunshot in my heart. "Erica," the lawyer confirmed it. "The house belongs to us now. You need to leave." "Leave?" I blinked at him like he was speaking a foreign language. My cane rested beside me, and my knees ached from the cold autumn wind curling up my legs. This was my home. My family's home. The place where my parents had raised me, where my mother had planted daisies that still bloomed every spring. The home I returned to after retiring from Johns Hopkins Hospital. "You're kicking me out?" I whispered. Brian didn't even look at me. He just lit a cigarette, turned his back, and muttered, "It's what Dad wanted. It's in the new will." New will. The original one had my name on it. I knew it did. I'd seen it with my own eyes. I was the only child. The only one left. But that's when it hit me. This wasn't an accident. They changed their will. Brian, Uncle Henry, and that shady lawyer with the shiny black shoes and slippery smile. They stole my inheritance, right from under my nose. And now they were throwing me out like a stranger on the street. I clutched my cane and stood slowly, my hands shaking, not from weakness but from fury. "I'm not leaving," I said. And that's when Brian stepped forward, and did something I never thought he'd do. He raised his hand. And in that terrifying moment, as the sun set behind our family home, I realized I was truly, utterly alone. But what Brian didn't know was that I had recorded everything. My name is Erica Jessie, and I'm 85 years old. I'm a retired trauma surgeon from Johns Hopkins Hospital. I spent 4 decades saving lives, teaching interns, and learning how to read a person's soul by the way they walk into a room. I've never been married. Never had children, but I had my parents, and for the longest time that was enough. After I retired, I moved back to my family ranch in Montana to care for my aging father. My mother passed years ago, and Dad was all I had left. He had rough hands, a gentle heart, and a booming laugh that could make a bear stop in its tracks. But 6 months ago, my life shattered. That night, I couldn't sleep. The hay in the barn poked my back, the cold crept through my blankets, and my heart was too loud to rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's face. I saw the truck. I heard Brian's voice telling me to leave. But it was the letter that kept my eyes wide open until morning. It was folded carefully inside a rusted envelope, sealed with electrical tape. Written on the outside in my father's shaky handwriting were just 5 words. "For Erica. If they lie." My fingers trembled as I peeled it open. Inside was a handwritten note on yellowed paper, the kind Dad always used for his grocery lists. "My dearest Erica, if you are reading this, then something has gone terribly wrong. If they lied to you, if the will isn't in your name, then know this, I did not change it. I left everything to you. This ranch, the savings, the land up north, the deed, all of it is yours. Henry came around last week asking strange questions. He brought a man with him, said he was from the county clerk's office. But something felt off. I don't trust them. I've hidden the real will somewhere safe. Not in the house. Not with Whitman. If anything happens to me, don't trust anyone, especially not Henry or Brian. Find the Red Bible. Love always, Dad." I gasped. The Red Bible? I hadn't seen it in years. It used to sit on the mantel in the house, the one with Mom's pressed flowers tucked inside. I remember it so clearly, but after she passed, it disappeared. That was 15 years ago. I sat up, heart pounding like a jackhammer. They knew about the real will. That's why they rushed to throw me out. That's why they teamed up with Whitman. They thought it was gone. Lost forever. But maybe it wasn't. I remembered the last conversation I had with Dad before the accident. We were watching the sunset from the porch swing. "You know, Dad," I said, "this place will be fine long after we're gone." He chuckled. "I'm not going anywhere yet, Pumpkin. And when I do, this land, every inch of it, is yours. Just promise me something." "What?" "Don't trust folks just because they wear your last name." I smiled then. I didn't know how serious he was. But I do now. I had to get inside that house. If the red Bible was still there, if the real will was hidden in it, I needed to find it before they burned it, buried it, or lost it like they did with every other piece of truth. But I couldn't just knock on the door. Brian had already threatened me. Uncle Henry would call the sheriff, and given his connections in town, I'd be the one in trouble. So I waited. 2 days. Slept in the barn, ate crackers and peanut butter, washed in the creek, and watched their routines. Brian always left for business around 9 a.m. He wasn't working, though. I knew he was out gambling. He'd always had a bad streak in Vegas and worse luck in Montana. Uncle Henry. He stayed home most days but took a nap after lunch. Like clockwork. That's when I'd make my move. It was Tuesday afternoon. I slipped through the side gate with my cane tucked under my coat. I moved fast for someone my age. Muscle memory from years in the ER. I found the back door key still hidden in the flower pot. Dad's old trick. They must have forgotten. Inside, the house smelled like furniture polish and betrayal. I went straight to the fireplace mantel. Nothing. The red Bible was gone. My chest tightened, but I kept looking. I checked the bookshelves, closets, the attic. Finally, in the basement, behind a stack of canned peaches, I saw it. Red leather, gold trim, my mother's handwriting in the front. I opened it, and there it was, taped to the back cover. The original will. Dad's signature. Dated 3 months before the accident. Everything was left to me. I heard a creak upstairs. Then the front door slammed. Who left the damn gate open? Brian's voice bellowed. My heart skipped. I grabbed the Bible and the will, stuffed them into my coat, and started for the back stairs. Footsteps. He was coming down. I ducked into the shadows behind the water heater, holding my breath like I used to in the OR when a patient's heart stopped. He walked right past me, muttering something about the neighbor's dog. Then his phone rang. It was Uncle Henry's voice on speaker. The lawyer called. He says Erica's been snooping again. Brian cursed. She won't find anything. We destroyed everything. No, Henry replied. We missed one thing. The Bible. My grip tightened. I backed out while they talked, slipped through the laundry room and out the back. As I reached the barn, I finally breathed. I had the will. I had the letter. And I had the recording of Brian's threats. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because the moment they realized the Bible was missing, they would come after me. But what they didn't know was this. I wasn't planning to run. I was planning to fight back. I didn't sleep that night. The red Bible rested beside me like a weapon, the taped-up will tucked safely between its pages. My father's handwriting, full of loops and fierce lines, stared back at me like a second chance. But I knew the paper wasn't enough. If I just marched into court with it, they'd say it was fake. That I forged it. That my elderly mind was playing tricks. I needed more. So the next morning, I took the city bus to Whitman and Associates. The firm sat in a fancy building in town, all glass windows and clean lawns. I wore my thick gray coat, sensible shoes, and a brooch my mother gave me back in '73. I walked through those double doors like I belonged. Because I did. Ms. Jessie? The receptionist blinked in surprise. Do you have an appointment? I smiled gently, my cane tapping the tile. Tell Mr. Whitman I'm here. He'll remember me. She picked up the phone slowly, eyes darting like she wasn't sure if I was harmless or a storm. Minutes later, Mr. Whitman appeared. He was younger than I remembered. Slick black hair, sharp suit, skin so smooth it looked powdered. He was all smiles. But his eyes, they flickered when he saw what was in my hand. Ms. Jessie. Erica. We weren't expecting you. I held up the Bible. I found it. His smile froze. I'm not sure what you mean. You know exactly what I mean, I said calmly. Let's talk. Privately. He hesitated, then gestured for me to follow. The office smelled like leather and lies. A tall shelf of law books lined the walls, none of them read. I sat across from him and placed the red Bible carefully on his desk. He stared at it like it might explode. I opened it and slid the taped will across the mahogany surface. His fingers trembled. This is dated 3 months before the accident, I said. It's notarized. It's signed. You said there was a newer version, but this is the one I saw. The one he showed me before he died. Whitman cleared his throat. Well, you see, the law, it's complicated. Wills can be revised. Don't you lie to me, son. He flinched. I leaned in. I know what you and Henry did. You thought I was weak. But you forgot something. I pulled out a small silver flash drive and dropped it next to the Bible. I recorded everything. Brian's threats. Henry's confession on the phone. You're all on tape. His face went pale. You can either help me fix this, I whispered, or I will take it to the police, the press, and every bar association in the state. For a moment, I thought he might agree. But then, he reached under his desk and hit the lock. The office door shut behind me. Locked from the inside. Ms. Jessie, he said coldly, you don't want to make a scene. Oh, I do. But I didn't say that. I simply sat there, heart pounding, studying his hands. He reached for the will slowly, like he was deciding whether to grab it or destroy it. You think you're untouchable, he said. I think I'm too old to care what you think, I replied. But you should care about your license. That's when I dropped my next card. I pulled out my cell phone. You see, Whitman, I said, I'm old, not stupid. When I came in, I sent a message to my neighbor Sally. If I don't text her back in 30 minutes, she's calling my friend at the sheriff's department. He paused, looked at the flash drive again. I also told her the name of the lawyer who helped my father's family rob me blind. He slumped back in his chair. Now, I said, voice steady, are you going to help me file the original will? Or should I call Channel 4 and tell them how you forged a dying man's signature? I didn't want to do it, he blurted suddenly. I raised an eyebrow. Henry said you were going to donate the ranch, that you were planning to sell it and give the money away to charities. He said your mind wasn't clear. That you were. That I was old and couldn't make decisions? He nodded shamefully. They promised me a piece of the sale. Said you'd never know. But I did know, I said quietly. And now the world will too, unless you help me. Whitman ran a hand through his hair and finally sighed. I can get the original will back on record. Quietly. It'll take a few weeks. I'll need to replace some files Henry took. But yes, I'll help. I stood, picked up my flash drive, and turned to leave. But before I reached the door, he said something that stopped me cold. Ms. Jessie. I looked over my shoulder. There's something you should know. Henry didn't just forge the will. I blinked. What do you mean? He swallowed hard. The accident, your father's crash, it might not have been so accidental. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. "What are you saying, Whitman?" I asked again, voice barely a whisper. But he didn't answer, because the lights suddenly went out. Total blackout. The buzzing overhead lights died mid-sentence, leaving me and Whitman bathed in nothing but silence and the weak glow of his laptop screen. Outside the window, clouds were rolling in fast over the Montana skyline, the kind of gray that carries thunder in its belly. For a second, we just sat there, frozen. Then, tap, tap, tap. Someone knocked on the glass behind the blinds. Whitman jumped. I clutched the red Bible tighter under my arm. "Who is that?" I asked. He stood slowly, went to the window, peeked through the blind slats, and went pale. "Stay here," he muttered. But I was already on my feet. "Tell me what you meant about the accident," I pressed. "Did someone sabotage my father's truck?" He looked like he was wrestling with himself. His hand hovered near the lock again. Then came the voice from the hallway. "Open up, Whitman. You've got mail from Uncle Henry." Before I tell you what happened next, let me take you back to the day my father died. They said it was an accident, a faulty steering column, a patch of oil, maybe even a stroke behind the wheel. But I remember that day. He'd just had his checkup, healthy as a horse. His hands were steady, his voice was clear. And we weren't even speeding. I was sitting right beside him. He gripped the wheel tight and said, "That's strange," just before the truck jerked sideways like something had snapped underneath. Afterward, I asked the mechanic about it. He shrugged. "Older truck. These things happen." But now I wasn't so sure. Whitman turned back to me, his voice hushed. "Your uncle came to me 2 weeks before the crash. Asked if I knew how to file a death certificate early." "What?" "He said it was just a legal technicality. Planning for estate management, he called it." I felt the color drain from my face. "Do you think they killed him?" I whispered. Before he could answer, the doorknob jiggled. Click. Someone was trying to get in. And then, slam. A heavy fist hit the door, followed by a low voice. "Whitman, open up or we do it the hard way." Whitman's eyes widened. "They know you came here." I grabbed my phone. No signal. The power outage must have knocked the cell tower, or worse, they jammed it. "They're going to destroy the will," I said. "They'll do anything to stop it." He looked at me. Then he looked at the Bible. Then, he opened his desk drawer, pulled out a USB drive, and stuck it into his computer. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Backing up the will," he said. "If we don't make it out of here, someone needs to know the truth." Then came the second knock. But this time, softer. Tap, tap, tap. A new voice whispered through the crack in the door. "Ms. Jessie. It's me. Sally. Sally." "My neighbor?" I rushed to the door. "Sally. I saw Henry's truck outside," she said, her voice muffled. "And 3 men with him. I figured you might need help." "How did you know I was here?" "You told me to wait 30 minutes, she said. "It's been 29. That's when I remembered. Before I came into the building, I had texted her exactly what to do. Sally, a retired mail carrier, might be 70, but she's tougher than most men. I turned to Whitman. "Can we get out the back?" He nodded. "There's a service elevator in the archives room." We grabbed the red Bible, the flash drives, the USB backups, every scrap of evidence. Sally opened the stairwell door and motioned us in. She carried a thermos in one hand and a taser in the other. "Try me," she muttered to the men blocking the front. Down 3 flights of stairs, past a boiler room, through a service exit, and finally, we burst into the alley behind the law firm. Whitman gasped for air. I leaned on my cane. Sally kept looking like a hawk. "We'll take my van," she said. As she revved the engine, I looked back one last time. Henry's truck was parked out front, and standing beside it, Brian, staring directly at me. That night, as we sat in Sally's kitchen drinking warm cider and catching our breath, I checked the flash drive. The will was there. The recordings were safe. But then Whitman spoke again. "There's one more thing," he said. He reached into his coat and pulled out a manila folder, stained and wrinkled. "This is your father's medical examiner's report. I had it buried in case I ever needed it." He slid it across the table to me. I opened it slowly and stopped. Brake lines were cut. I stared at the paper. It was dated the day after the crash, signed by a pathologist I knew personally. The truth was out there the whole time, but someone had buried it. Someone in the family. I looked up, my hands shaking, my throat dry. Brian and Henry didn't just steal the will. They murdered my father. And now, I was next. It's one thing to suspect something evil. It's another to hold the proof in your hands. That night, I couldn't stop reading the autopsy report. The phrase "brake line severed manually" stared back at me like it had teeth. My father hadn't died by accident. His truck didn't just lose control. Someone had helped it crash. And the only people who stood to gain anything were Brian and Uncle Henry. My hand trembled as I ran my fingers over Dad's name. The date. The cold, clinical words that reduced the man who raised me into diagrams and data points. I have been a surgeon for 42 years. I knew how to read a death report. And this one screamed murder. Sally poured me a cup of weak coffee. Bless her heart. She had let me sleep in her spare bedroom, but I barely closed my eyes. My mind kept flashing back to my father's last day, how he smiled when he packed the grocery list, how he waved at the neighbor kids, how he whistled out of tune. And how none of that would ever happen again, because someone in my own bloodline had taken him from me. I knew what I had to do next. "I'm going to the sheriff," I said. Whitman flinched. "Are you sure? That could make things complicated." "Complicated," I snapped. "They killed my father and stole everything he built with his own hands. You think complicated scares me?" I walked into the small-town sheriff's station around noon, clutching a leather folder that contained the original will, the medical report, and the recordings. A young deputy named Tucker stood behind the counter. "I'd like to report a murder," I said. He blinked, then leaned forward. "Excuse me, ma'am? My father, Arthur Jesse, died in a car accident 6 months ago. Turns out it wasn't an accident." I laid out the folder. He called in the sheriff, a broad-shouldered man named Wilcox who had been in office since I was a teenager. He thumbed through the folder slowly, but I watched his eyes. He skimmed the will, hesitated at the audio transcript, and froze on the autopsy report. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "I used to teach the pathologist who signed it," I replied. He had no idea it was buried. Sheriff Wilcox let out a long breath. "You're telling me your own family cut the brake lines?" "I'm telling you it was murder. And I'm giving you proof." For a moment, I thought he might help. Then he closed the folder gently, like he was tucking away a bedtime story. "I'll need to look into this," he said. "But you shouldn't go around town spreading this kind of accusation. Henry Jesse's been part of this community a long time." I narrowed my eyes. "You know him, don't you?" He didn't answer. I didn't need him to. They were friends. Of course they were. Henry had always been good at playing the country gentleman, smiling during church, tipping at diners, handing out donation checks like candy on Halloween. I stood slowly, cane in one hand, folder in the other. If you won't do your job, Sheriff, I said, I'll find someone who will. I didn't go home after that. I went to the local paper. The Montana Plains Sentinel was a small building with dusty windows, but inside sat a woman with fire in her eyes and a notepad always in hand. Her name was Kate Monroe. Mid-30s. Auburn hair. The kind of reporter who didn't mind getting mud on her boots for a good story. She offered me a chair. I told her everything. Showed her the will. The audio files. The autopsy. When I was done, she looked like she'd just swallowed dynamite. Miss Jessie, she said softly, do you mind if I record this? Please do, I nodded. And when you publish, don't leave out a single name. The article dropped that Sunday. Murdered for inheritance? Retired surgeon exposes dark family secrets. It went viral in our little town. People started whispering at grocery stores. Neighbors avoided Henry's house. Kids on bikes stopped riding near the ranch. But then came the retaliation. Monday morning, Sally's mailbox was smashed. Tuesday, someone slashed her tires. Wednesday, I found a dead crow nailed to my father's old barn door. With a note. Old ladies should know when to be quiet. Thursday evening, I heard the knock. Sally had gone out for groceries, and I was alone. I opened the door, and there he stood. Brian. Face flushed. Eyes wild. Hands twitching. You had to go and ruin everything, didn't you? He spat. I didn't back down. You killed your own uncle, I said, staring him dead in the eyes. And you're going to prison for it. His lip curled. You think a piece of paper and a town gossip can stop us? He stepped forward. And I did the only thing I could think of. I raised my cane and swung. The cane cracked against his shoulder, and he stumbled back, but not far enough. He caught my wrist, twisted it, and growled. You'll regret this, Aunt Erica. My wrist cracked the moment Brian twisted it. I cried out and dropped the cane. The red Bible slid across the floor, pages fluttering like wings in a storm. My heart thundered in my chest, but I stared at him down, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me beg. Give it up, old woman, he hissed. No one's gonna believe you. I spat on the ground beside him. They already do. He raised his hand like he was going to strike me, but then a loud click. The unmistakable sound of a safety being disengaged. Brian froze. Behind him, standing in the doorway, was Sally. And in her hand, a shotgun. I don't care if I'm 70 or 170, she said calmly. You lay another finger on her, and I'll redecorate this hallway with your kneecaps. Brian's face turned ghost white. He backed away slowly, hands raised. This isn't over, he said. You think you've won, but you haven't seen what my father can do. Then he turned, stormed out, and peeled off in that muddy black pickup of his. Sally walked over to me, her eyes sharp but soft. You all right? She asked. I nodded, wincing. Nothing broken but my pride. We sat in silence after that. Sally wrapped my wrist, and I nursed a cup of peppermint tea. The adrenaline was gone, and the ache had settled in. I should have known he'd come here, I muttered. Sally shrugged. You hit him harder than most men would have. That's worth something. The article Kate wrote had stirred up a hornet's nest, and the hornets were made. But the town was paying attention now. I had seen it myself. Neighbors stopping to whisper, young folks reading the newspaper at the diner, folks starting to ask questions about Henry's sudden wealth after the accident. And Kate. She was just getting started. The next day, Kate came over with a strange look on her face. She sat at the kitchen table, eyes wide. I found something, she said. She slid a photograph across the table. It was grainy, old. but clearly taken at the county clerk's office. In it, Henry Jesse, Brian, and Sheriff Wilcox, standing beside a man in a suit I didn't recognize. But Kate did. "That's Randall Pierce," she said. "He's not just any lawyer. He used to be on the board of the state's property records department." I stared at the photo. "What was he doing with them?" "Covering tracks," she said, "and possibly helping erase or update legal documents." My stomach twisted. This went deeper than just a fake will. This was a network, a whole system of men working together to rob, erase, and intimidate. That night, I sat alone on the porch swing, the one Dad used to rock on after dinner. I clutched the red Bible against my chest and finally let the tears fall. All these years I thought I was too old to fight, too tired to stand. But sitting here now, I realized something. I wasn't fighting just for myself. I was fighting for my father. For every old woman who was told to sit down and stay quiet. For every person who lost everything to liars in suits. The next morning, I marched back to Whitman's office, with Kate and Sally by my side. He had a surprise for me. "I filed a formal motion in probate court to reinstate your father's original will," he said. "It's scheduled for hearing next Friday." I blinked. "That's in 6 days. Which means," Kate added, "you're going to need protection. Brian and Henry won't go down without a fight." "I'm not afraid of them," I said. "I've faced death in operating rooms, tornadoes on the highway, and now, my own flesh and blood. They don't scare me." Sally grinned. "Still, I'm keeping my shotgun nearby." That same day, Kate got a tip from a clerk at the courthouse. "Henry's already trying to tamper with the judge," she said, breathless. "Someone saw him having lunch with the Honorable Judge Rockwell, the same judge assigned to your case." My stomach turned. "Then we need to expose him, before they do something worse." Kate nodded. "Already working on it." But that night, just as I was about to go to bed, I got a phone call from an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A voice whispered, "Stop digging, Erica, or you'll end up just like your father." Then the line went dead. My hand shook. I knew now, more than ever. Next week could be my last. I didn't sleep. How could I? That call, "You'll end up just like your father," echoed through every corner of my bones like a chill that wouldn't leave. I sat in the dark with the phone in my hand, staring out the kitchen window while the wind whistled through the trees. Somewhere out there, someone wanted me gone. But I wasn't going anywhere. Not now. Not when I was this close. "You need security," Sally said first thing the next morning. She had that no-nonsense look in her eye again, the same one she had when she stormed in with a shotgun and made Brian rethink his whole life. "I can handle myself," I muttered, rubbing my wrist. "That's what you said last time, before he twisted your arm like a breadstick." She poured me coffee and added, "I've already called in a favor." A favor. A knock came at the door. Standing there was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his 40s, dressed in a tan sheriff's deputy uniform. "Name's Mason," he said, tipping his hat. "Sally says you need a bodyguard with a badge." Turns out, Mason wasn't just any deputy. He used to work with the State Bureau of Investigations but had retired early after exposing corruption in another county. Sally had helped his mother when she was dying of cancer. He said he owed her more than a favor. "I read the autopsy," Mason said. "And the will. You're not imagining things, Ms. Jessie. You can call me Erica." He nodded. "Then Erica, I'm here for you until this court date is over." Later that afternoon, Kate arrived with her eyes lit up like wildfire. "You're not going to believe this," she said, waving a flash drive. "I got audio from someone inside Judge Rockwell's chambers." My heart skipped. "Is it legal?" "It's anonymous," she replied. Take that as you will. We plugged it into Sally's laptop. The voices were faint at first, but then they became clear. Henry Jesse, you and I go way back, Judge. I just want a smooth hearing. Let's not waste time on dead men's paperwork. Judge Rockwell, what you're asking is dangerous. Henry, so is losing your retirement fund. You remember who filled it, don't you? My hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just family betrayal. It was systemic corruption. I had a choice. I could wait for the hearing, play it legal and hope the judge didn't bury it all under a gavel. Or I could go public. Leak the recording. Let the whole town hear Henry for what he truly was. Whitman said the leak could cause a mistrial. Kate said it could save my life. Sally said, do whatever gives you peace. And Mason? He looked me square in the eye and said, you started a fire, Erica. If you're going to burn, take them with you. That night, Kate published the story on the paper's online site. Exclusive, judge caught on tape, estate fraud and a family conspiracy. The audio played for thousands of people across our town and beyond. It wasn't just news. It was a spark. The courthouse phones lit up. Reporters started calling. State investigators opened a file. And Judge Rockwell? He recused himself the next morning. Just when I thought we were gaining ground, a new storm came in. Literally. Lightning cracked over our barn late that evening, and when I went out to check the noise, I found the barn doors wide open. Inside, someone had slashed the hay bales, spray-painted the walls, and written 3 chilling words in red. Final warning, Erica. But they'd made a mistake. They didn't see the motion detector camera Mason had installed the day before. We had footage. And Brian was on it. The footage was enough. Mason drove straight to the judge assigned after Rockwell recused. The warrant was signed that night. And before dawn, Brian Jesse was arrested. The problem? Uncle Henry was gone. The house was empty. The bank account cleared out. No signs. No notes. Just vanished. As Mason cuffed Brian and led him into the cruiser, I leaned close and asked, where is your father? Brian smiled. You'll find out, just before he finds you. My heart pounded. He was out there, still pulling strings, still hunting for the will, still planning his next move. But what Henry didn't know, I had one more secret left too. 2 days after Brian's arrest, I woke up to an envelope taped to my window. No name, no return address, just 4 words written in shaky black ink. Ask about the ledger. At first, I thought it was a prank. Another scare tactic from Henry's goons, maybe even Brian trying to send a message from jail. But then I remembered something. Years ago, maybe 5 or 6 before Dad passed, he'd said something odd one morning while we were gardening. You know, Pumpkin, he chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. I've written down everything important in case my brain gets as rusty as this shovel. One day, you might need that ledger more than anything. At the time, I thought he meant bills. Maybe taxes. I never asked where it was. But now, that ledger could change everything. I brought the note to Sally. She rubbed her chin, then snapped her fingers. You know, there's a false floorboard in the attic. I remember your mother mentioning it when she kept family heirlooms out of the sun. So we went back to the farmhouse. Even though Henry had vanished, I felt exposed walking up those creaky porch steps. The air smelled like stale secrets and leftover fear. Mason stood guard outside while Sally and I climbed the narrow attic stairs. After 20 minutes of poking, we found it. A loose wooden board near the back wall. Under it, wrapped in oilcloth and twine, was the ledger. It was thick, dusty, and packed cover to cover in Dad's handwriting. But this wasn't a financial ledger. It was a life record. Receipts from decades ago. Photos of land purchases. Original copies of mineral rights to the North Ridge, the same land Henry always begged to buy. And taped in the very back? An affidavit signed by Arthur Jesse and 2 witnesses. It read, "In the event of my death, I wish for this document to confirm that Henry Jesse has made multiple attempts to coerce me into selling our family lands, especially those with suspected oil presence. I refused every time. If this document is found, consider it my warning. My death was no accident if Henry benefits." I stared at the paper. Oil. The land my father left me wasn't just a ranch. It was worth millions. We brought the ledger to Kate that afternoon. Her jaw dropped. "This isn't just about a fake will," she said. "This is about fraud, intimidation, racketeering, maybe even attempted murder." She dug deeper. One of the companies listed in the ledger, Hawk Ridge Energy, was registered under an alias. And guess who owned it? Henry Jesse. He'd been hiding behind a shell company, trying to push Dad out and steal the rights to drill without ever having his name on the papers. But Dad never sold. So Henry tried something else. Elimination. 2 days later, there was a knock on the door. This time it wasn't Brian. It was the FBI. Agent Calhoun, a serious woman with a tight bun and sharper eyes, introduced herself. "We've been investigating Hawk Ridge for 5 years," she said. "We never had enough to nail the man behind it. Until now." I handed her the ledger. She read every word, every signature. Then she looked up and said the one thing I'd been waiting months to hear. "We're opening a federal case." That night, Mason got a call from the jail. Brian had cracked. With Henry gone and the weight of federal charges coming down, he offered to cooperate. But only if he got a reduced sentence. His confession was chilling. "My dad said Erica would never survive the crash," he said. "He was furious when she lived. That's when he told me to change the will, and if she caused trouble, to scare her off." He described in detail how Henry paid off the judge, bribed the lawyer, and even hired a man to tamper with the brakes. But before Mason hung up the call, Brian said one more thing. "Tell Aunt Erica I'm sorry." Then, after a long pause, he added, "But she's not safe yet. My dad's not finished. And he has one more will, hidden in a bank in Texas. A fake will. One Henry might still use to claim the land, if he resurfaces." I stood on the porch that evening, clutching the ledger to my chest while the wind howled across the empty fields. My father left me the truth. My family left me scars. And now, the final battle was coming. The wind that evening didn't feel like Montana wind. It felt like a warning. The sky was an eerie gray, and even the cattle seemed unsettled. I sat on the porch swing, ledger in one hand, red Bible on my lap, and stared at the horizon like Henry might come storming over the hill on a cloud of fire. He hadn't shown his face since the federal case opened, but now, with Brian's confession and whispers of a second will hidden in Texas, the air had shifted. This wasn't over. It was about to hit its peak. It all came back to me. One Thanksgiving about 10 years ago, Dad and I were talking about family land, and Henry was there, poking at the fire, drinking cheap bourbon, slurring his words. "You know, Art," he said, "if you don't do something legal with that Texas property, someone else will. Paper's the only thing that talks these days." Dad had laughed it off. But now, it wasn't funny anymore. Brian's warning haunted me. He has one more will, hidden in a bank in Texas. I called Mason and Kate. "I'm going," I said, "to Texas." Sally nearly dropped her mug. "The hell you are." "Henry's going to try to beat me there," I said. "If I don't get that fake will first, he might use it to nullify everything, even the original one." Kate pulled some strings and found the bank, Star Western Security Vault, just outside of Dallas. A private bank where VIP clients stored alternative documents and property deeds. That's where the will had to be. So, with the FBI's blessing and 2 federal agents flying separately, I boarded a plane for the first time in over 15 years, with my cane, my father's ledger, and Mason at my side. The vault was intimidating. Tall mirrored glass, armed guards, sterile white floors. I walked up to the counter and gave my father's name. The clerk blinked. "Sorry, ma'am. There's no deposit under Arthur Jesse." I smiled politely. "Check under Henry Jesse." She hesitated, then nodded slowly and whispered something to a man in a suit. We were escorted to a small room with frosted glass walls. Inside, the bank manager pulled out a narrow security box. "Mr. Henry Jesse left instructions that this is only to be opened in the presence of family," he said. I stared at the box. Well, I'm the last one left. They unlocked the box. Inside were 3 things. A folded legal document labeled Last Will and Testament, Arthur Jesse. A bank slip showing recent movement of $400,000 to a Cayman Islands account. A single envelope with my name on it. I ignored the envelope. The will came first. I opened it. My father's signature stared back at me, but it was off. The loop in the J was reversed. His middle name was spelled wrong. Forgery. A very good one, but still a forgery. Mason photographed every page while the FBI scanned the doc. It was dated 2 weeks before the accident, after the original will. A clear contradiction. Then I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note in Henry's arrogant scrawl. "I told you I'd win. But even if they catch me, you'll never know where the rest is hidden. H." And just below that, a second line written in red pen. "Check the church." We returned home the next morning. I didn't wait. The church my family had attended for generations sat at the edge of our ranch. Abandoned now, its windows are dusty and cracked. I took Mason and Sally with me, and Kate met us at the old front steps. Inside, the pews creaked. Cobwebs clung to the rafters. I walked slowly to the altar, remembering baptisms, Christmas songs, and my mother's funeral. That's when I saw it. A piece of the altar floor was freshly nailed, with different wood. We pried it open. Inside, wrapped in plastic, cash, stacks of it, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and a folder marked Oil Lease Agreements, Hawk Ridge Energy. As Mason flipped through the folder, he swore under his breath. "These aren't just leases. These are bribes. Paid to local officials, land inspectors, and even 2 former federal clerks." Kate photographed every document. The case against Henry wasn't just solid now. It was explosive. But there was more. One page near the back caught my eye. It was a letter of agreement signed by Henry Jesse and Judge Rockwell, written 6 months before Dad's death. Contingent upon Arthur Jesse's property becoming legally transferable by death, 20% of mineral profit will be wired to your private trust. The FBI launched full raids that night. And then, just before dawn, Mason got the call. Henry Jesse was spotted. He'd crossed the Canadian border in disguise, but now he was heading back. A plane ticket was found in his name. Destination: Montana. I stood at the kitchen window, red Bible in one hand, ledger in the other. This time, I wouldn't run. I wouldn't hide. Let him come. Because now, I had everything. And soon, he'd have nothing. The sky was still pink when I got the call. Agent Calhoun's voice was clear but tense. "Erica, Henry Jesse just crossed into Montana airspace. Private plane. Fake name. But we matched it to a known alias. He's coming straight for you." I hung up and didn't say a word. I just walked to the kitchen, put on a pot of coffee, and grabbed my old coat. Then I opened the drawer by the fridge, the one no one ever thinks to check. Inside was a pistol. Small. Cold. Fully loaded. I hadn't used it since the night we buried my mother. But today, I wasn't the one being buried. Sally came over in a flash when she heard the news. Mason was already stationed on the front porch, flanked by 2 FBI agents in plain clothes. Kate arrived last, breathless, with her camera gear slung over her shoulder and fire in her eyes. "This is it," she whispered. "We weren't just waiting for a man anymore. We were waiting for judgment." I sat on the porch swing, hands wrapped around my thermos, gun tucked into the pocket of my coat. And I waited. It was just after noon when the black SUV pulled up. It didn't creep. It didn't hesitate. It rolled and bowled as thunder, tires crunching gravel, engine purring like a panther. And then the door opened. Henry Jesse stepped out, white hair combed back, leather boots polished, smile smug as sin. "You've caused quite the mess, Erica," he said, hands in his pockets like he wasn't facing federal agents and a woman ready to testify. "I cleaned up your mess," I replied. "I'm just finishing the job." He walked up the porch steps. Mason and the agent stood still, waiting for the signal. Henry didn't stop. He came right to me. "You think you've won?" he sneered. "You don't understand the kind of men I work with, the things I've done, the files I have." "I don't care about files," I said. He blinked. "I care about my father. I care about the land he built. And I care that you took him from me." He laughed. "A weak old man and a pile of dirt." That's when I stood. I pulled the pistol out and pointed it straight at his chest. "Say his name again," I said. "Say it." His smile vanished. Before Henry could respond, Agent Calhoun stepped forward and slapped cuffs on him. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, attempted murder, and obstruction of justice," she said. He didn't struggle, but he looked at me with eyes full of venom. "This isn't the end," he hissed. "Oh, I know," I replied. "The end comes in court." 6 weeks later, I sat in the front row of the packed courtroom. Brian testified first. His voice cracked when he told the judge how Henry coached him to forge the will and arranged the brake tampering. Then Kate's article was submitted into evidence. Then the recordings, the affidavit, the ledger. And finally, me. I took the stand. 85 years old. Hair pinned back. Voice steady as a scalpel. "I am not just a grieving daughter," I said. "I am a woman who watched her family be stolen, her name erased, and her truth buried. But I dug it up. I didn't survive a lifetime to be silenced at the end." It didn't take long. Guilty. On every count. The courtroom erupted, but I just sat still. Let it soak in. Let the silence wrap around me like my father's old coat. Henry was sentenced to life without parole. Brian got 15 years for his cooperation. The judge, Rockwell, was disbarred. And the land. It was mine. The red Bible was returned to the fireplace mantel. The ledger is locked in a vault. And my father's name? Cleared. Sometimes I still sit on the porch swing and talk to him. I imagine him sitting next to me, coffee in hand, whistling off-key like always. And when the wind blows through the daisy patch, I swear I can hear his voice. "You did good, pumpkin. You brought the truth home." I'm Erica Jesse, a daughter, a survivor, and a woman who learned that even when the world tries to bury you, you can still grow roots strong enough to crack the earth. Thank you for following this powerful journey to the end. If this touched your heart, let us know where you're watching from and comment below. Justice has no expiration date. Like, comment, subscribe. For more real, raw, and bold stories like this, stay with us.